Deepwokens' development team forgets things. They often add entirely new mechanics and just forget about them. Some mechanics that have existed for years at this point are rendered nearly useless, like motifs, and sometimes the developers just forget to write lore or explanations for things in game. In today's video, I want to talk about the various forgotten additions that Deepwoken developers added to the game and never really added upon, or simply updates the developers have promised that never ended up coming out. Before we get into it, I'm going to be live at twitch.tv/Reaconteur about 20 minutes after this video comes out, so go watch me over there. I'm trying something new where I stream at the end of the video's length, so you guys can watch the video and then you can watch the streams after, and you can watch both. So let's get straight into it. Alright, so first of all, the most obvious forgotten addition to Deepwoken that I'm sure a lot of people were thinking of, that I even mentioned in the intro, is motifs. Motifs have been out for over a year and a half, and upon release, and for the first few weeks, they were promising. New ones kept getting added, and the motifs as a system were made to spice up weapons and provide more variety between builds by allowing you to use good crits on weapons with worse ones that might have better stats. Now personally, I don't like motifs, because why the fuck does the Pale Morning user I'm fighting have the Kier's Cleave crit? You know what I mean? Not specifically that, but it kind of throws you off in a bad way. But the point is, the developers eventually randomly stopped adding them, so now some weapons have motifs, but a vast majority of them don't. And the reason why I think they don't do more is for the same reason I kind of just said. It's just weird for weapons to be able to use any crit, because then at a certain point we wrap all the way around from creative possibilities to everyone using the exact same shit because some YouTuber said it was good. I really hate how uncreative the Deepwoken community is, but that would literally be what happened, right? People would just use the highest stat weapons or the best weapons with the best stats, and then they just use the crit on the best crit weapon, and then that would be the meta. Regardless, the motifs feature was likely added and abandoned because it was a worse idea that the developers just didn't like, and they just didn't see it fitting into the game long term. And honestly, I agree. I think it could have been really unhealthy for the game's meta. Now, before people bring up Conquest was not forgotten. It was scrapped, cancelled, excommunicated, called off, abandoned, nixed, redlined, and dropped. Insert more synonyms. If you have any, leave them in the comments below. Conquest was not forgotten. The devs actively worked on it until they lost motivation for it because Conquest never really made sense as a major update. It's a one run per mode sort of thing with rewards like Battle Royale, except they wanted that to serve as their major update rather than something PvE based and important like Layer 2 or Layer 3. It would have been a bad contrast over time with their vision, just kept distorting until they went on to scrap it. So now, conquestless, but not forgotten. Other things people kept telling me that were forgotten that aren't are just like Sarah made Hollow rework. Like, no, it's not forgotten. It's really part of the Verse 3 roadmap. Just because it's not out yet doesn't necessarily mean it's forgotten. And someone else said oaths in general, which people kept telling me they've forgotten about. Like, no, we just haven't gotten one in a while. That point is dumb. Oaths weren't forgotten. They're an integral part of the gameplay. And back about Conquest, right? It kind of just never made sense. Conquest would be kind of like if they made Battle Royale like the next major update, because systematically they're kind of similar, right? It just would have been a bad idea. Now, on the other hand, what was forgotten is cooking. I remember that the game was supposed to have much more in-depth cooking mechanics and not just the chef oath. I know, the guy in the comments down below who likes the chef oath, I'm sorry, man. I'm pretty sure Agamatsu promised him the chef oath, and I'll talk about that in a second, right? In the way that when like you eat some foods, you get certain buffs, I was expecting a similar cooking system to Zelda Breath of the Wild for those of you who played it, in which different ingredients offer different buffs for different potencies and times, kind of like alchemy and stuff and potions, but with food, which, would be better. And for the love of God, if they do this, it better not be exclusive to the chef oath. That would be so stupid. I wanted cooking to be viable, and it's sad that it isn't. And also, Agamatsu, you said there'd be a chef oath coming like 6 months ago. Where is it, Amagusto? Where's the chef oath, Mr. Amagusto? My favorite Turkish black game developer YouTuber. Anyway, the most recent thing that they've actually kind of forgotten, but they didn't really forget, are going to be the weapon reworks update. They probably haven't forgotten about this, but a lot of people are convinced the devs have indeed forgotten. The weapons reworks update is an update which was supposed to be a major part of Operation Deep Healing, in which the developers made the game's weapons feel much more different from each other outside of crit and swing speed, adding innate unique mechanics to various weapons, weapon types, etc. And there's been nothing on this update so far other than that it's been delayed because they need more time to work on the weapons. Now, I think they should take their time. I want the weapons to be unique, and I know doing that is a lot of work, but guys, please just get it done, because the weapons in this game are boring, and we should probably be focusing on that before we get, all the balancing stuff out, because what's the point of balancing around the current game systems when you're just going to rework every weapon and shake up the meta and how everything works anyway? So honestly, I see like the polls that they're doing in the Discord, and they're like, do you guys think uppercut spam is too hard? Bro, get the fucking weapons done. Like, you're seeing if people want to complain about uppercuts, but the point is, like, even if people complain about uppercuts, what's that gonna matter if uppercuts aren't viable after the weapons rework anyway because of how the mechanics work now? now. Point being, you guys kind of have to lock in on that. Now, one thing I know for a fact they forgot or just don't seem to care about doing on time is the Valve Iron content update stuff. I'm not sure if this was like a confirmed thing the developer said publicly, and if not, I'm kind of leaking dev statements. Anyway, Valve Iron, to my knowledge, was supposed to be getting a content update all the way back in January, but we haven't even heard news of a Valve Iron content update yet, so it's not looking good for Valve Iron right now, and it could just end up staying the way it is, as a completely separate game mode, rather than being its own thing with updates that it gets, and being like a more PvE focused thing with certain builds. But who knows, maybe they'll update it soon, maybe they won't, because I mean, I thought they were going to update it like 3 months ago, but we'll see about that. Along with that, there are various enemy reworks that we still haven't gotten yet, the most prominent actually being the lionfish. There's actually a leaked lionfish model from Archmage talking about it being reworked, as well as the fact that for a while they used a banner which purposely showcased the reworked lionfish in it, and yet over a year later no one ever reworked for the enemy. And sorry about the banner image I used, it was the only one I could find. Anyway, the lionfish isn't the only major enemy that they haven't reworked, even though they were supposed to. The most major one would actually be the Kaido, or the Dread Serpent, who was supposed to get a boss fight rework, and still actually has one planned because he's kind of just really lame and boring to fight. Or at least I hope they have one planned, but they haven't worked on it, so we wouldn't know anyway. Now, this next one is really old, so I'm not sure how many of you are going to remember this, but there was actually supposed to be a PvP gladiator mode added to the game at some point, which functioned like an overworld open queue Chime of Conflict, where people fight continuously in rings. And I get why they wouldn't add this, because it would be kind of redundant with Chime of Conflict existing, and it kind of limits the queue pool because it would be per server. But I think this would actually be a much more fun alternative to Chime. Keep in mind, guys, I despise Chime of Conflict, so I might be a little bit biased for this one. Now, as far as updates go, there are a few we know that were supposed to come out a while ago, such as the Great Hive Origin and the Farming update, which was actually leaked by the devs all the way back with Conquest, for it to never release similarly to Conquest. By the way, I don't know if I'm the only person, but I can't say the word Conquest without getting jump scared by Conquest from Invincible. Just that's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, I like spaghetti, but there's all the things missing in the lore as well. The reason for certain things to be missing in lore is because the developers don't touch stuff that the other devs make. So when the person who made Link Strider got fired from the dev team, the oath's lore never got written because nobody else wanted to deal with their work. On the other side of it, the Lost Forge never got lore, and the reasoning behind it isn't actually known, which is interesting. And speaking of forges, the Cold Forge is kind of forgotten. Like, I guess it's kind of like they only wanted some weapons to be made with the Cold Forge, and it was supposed to be its own quest thing. But we haven't gotten a Cold Forge weapon in like a year, I don't think. Maybe a little bit less than a year. But regardless, the Cold Forge was kind of its own thing, which was made to create special legendary weapons, and we haven't been able to use it in a while because they haven't added any new weapons to be made from the Cold Forge. And then there are divergences, which were supposed to be added around the time of Valve Iron. And divergences were like sub-races or unlockable racial abilities and changes for races through gameplay. For those of you who played Rogue Lineage, think about divergences being like racial unlocks in that game, except with quests to do them instead of waiting certain amounts of time. Anyway, they were never completely confirmed to be coming with Valve Iron, but the time frame was sometime around then, and then almost 5 months later it's still not in existence. And speaking of not existing, the Bloodsworn Effigy, an Artist 1 weapon that funnily enough was supposed to be added with Conquest, and now that Conquest isn't coming out, we really don't know how this is going to end up in the game unless it drops with verse 3. Because the funny thing about the Bloodsworn Effigy was it was specifically supposed to be a Conquest first place drop, or like a rank drop for Conquest for like top players, because the entire thing about it was to be rallying your teammates. And now that there's no Conquest, we just don't know how this thing's going to get added. Anyway, despite the fact that none of these things have made it into the game in a timely manner, I'm like 90% sure most of these are going to make their way in with verse 3. Most of them are actually pretty major, so adding them in to make layer 3 larger would be a good idea. Realistically, they'd probably remember most of these and plan on implementing them in larger scale updates to pad patch notes and make them look even larger. So honestly, I wouldn't put too much blame on the developers, but remember guys, if you want to blame anyone, you need to blame whatever developer you like the least, even if they have nothing to do with it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If I missed anything forgot about, then let me know back down in the comments. If you guys have any other ideas and stuff, I read every comment as usual. I've actually been responding to less comments recently because I've just been really busy, especially when half of them are the same dumbass jokes I see in every comment section. 0 views in 2 seconds, you're so fucking funny. And now there's a guy who comments asking about my opinions on Fortnite skins. I don't know what's up with that. His last comment was asking me about what I thought about Tung 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 Sahur in Fortnite now. Someone's gonna clip that and just start using voice like, they're just gonna start sending MP3s of me talking about Triple T Sahur. Which, by the way, it was originally 7 Ts. I'm an OG brain rotter. I sound like I'm 40, holy fuck. Anyway, as usual, shout out to you to members of Tier 2 or higher. I'll be dropping a new song cover next week. Also, check me out on Twitch, where I'm streaming Mondays. I won't be live Wednesday, though. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really busy. It's my anniversary. Anyway, buy membership of any tier to hear it. Shout out to you two members: Green, Philip, Delusional Mo, Broccoli, Akio Sugi Kuni, Burger, Fun Guns, Drizzy Drake Fan, and welcome to new Tier 2 members, Zerksky. Please let me know if I said that right down in the comments, buddy. If not, I'll correct myself next video. I love you all. Have an amazing day as usual, and goodbye.